Good morning, Misfits. You are tuning into another episode of the Misfit Podcast. 3/4 of the Goon Squad in the house. Hey, guys.
Hey.
Sup?
What's up, Bill?
Hey, Bill. Bill's back there.
Fucking second time.
Second time back
Bill
there.
on the mixer.
Acting like he's never been here before.
Unreal. Dunking on the goalposts.
He looks so comfortable right now.
He's got
Why are
a
you waving
micro-
at
He
us, Bill?
just gave us the double thumbs up. the Misfit salute.
Just keep telling lies all the time.
Bill.
What else is Bill doing back
Bill's
there?
never said anything honest in this podcast studio.
So we talked last week about the team workouts, and then you got kind of the most dooziest thing that you've had thus far. It was supposed to be something, it became something else, but it was essentially
these are our team practice workouts. For
worm,
the
clean and
listeners.
jerk, worm, lunge.
Yeah.
So there was really the way that we had been doing it thus far is what is the kind of simplest worm movement that we can do. We'll practice a more complicated one after. This was the first week where there was nowhere to hide whatsoever. You guys did worm clean and jerks and worm lunges back and forth. Thoughts?
So fun. The clean and jerks honestly went really well. I think as a team, we're starting to get the hang of like how to get in sync and like.
And
what
to
the commands
clarify,
are.
they're Kyle, Hunter, and Sherb are helping Caroline train for semifinals.
So I think we're getting pretty good at understanding like each other's like cadence and how to move together. I think the like synchronicity of the movements are starting to click. The lunges were a different story, mostly because, you know, one thing we've talked about as a group when we were doing it last week is that, you know, a lot of those teams, because they have practiced so much, they just kind of follow each other's like natural instinctive cadence, and we don't have that yet. So like I think what Hunter came up with, which was like lunge, breathe, step, lunge, breathe, step, ended up, I think that's what you said on Friday, but something similar to that ended up being a really good way to help pace it. And like there were still some, you know, growing pains of people stepping like me on a tightrope wire, or, you know, stepping too early or too late and that causing someone to get pulled backward. So, you know, I think I complained quite a few times about a tight back. I think other people were experiencing a little bit of discomfort just because we weren't perfectly in sync. But there were a handful of the rounds that we did on Friday where it like felt like, oh, this is like how it would go if this were a team event. Might not be the fastest team, but we're starting to get the hang of it. And it's, you know, being our third weekend of the worm, like I think pretty good for how little experience we have.
One of my like coaching pull string comments is know your enemy. And you guys did not know your enemy. So it's kind of a unique situation. You can't go into it with a expectation outside of what's my attitude going to be like and are we going to be able to communicate? Outside of that, it's like, I don't know, because I mean, you guys shot out of a cannon at the beginning of the one that was supposed to be not for time. And you realize like, how do you, as a like hive mind group of 4, pace a workout knowing that if you go too hard at the beginning of this, it's not really going to matter. It's a weird implement and movement and setting to pace.
It was weird, I think, though, again, going back to the lunges, like we all got the clean and jerks done. And then because we were off on the lunge cadence, we worked against ourselves, which made the next rounds like infinitely harder. And then all of a sudden someone got pulled in one direction and that added to extra fatigue that wasn't really necessary at that point in the workout. But like, that's part of what we were figuring out is like, can you figure out what is your sustained pace, worm, clean and jerk, worm, lunge, when you have no context for how that should go? And I think by the end we got closer. We still didn't keep the even splits because how it worked is that we did like 5 rounds, 4 rounds, and 3 rounds of varying rep schemes. And the idea was by the 3-round part, we could actually go at like game speed. And like, even in that last chunk, I think we had probably, if I were to guess, like 1 or 2 of the 3 rounds were tight and then 1 round was way off. And that was just because like, I think I needed a break because my back was tight, or like, you know, someone maybe missed time to clean and jerk and we had to like pick up the worm a second time. But I mean, overall, I think we did a decent job with it. I think we obviously have, I don't know how many more weeks, 6 more weeks of practice, 5 more weeks of practice to get it down, and hopefully
2 or 3, but yeah, you're close.
I don't know.
Yep.
Is it Christmas next week? I don't know. But essentially a chance to really get more comfortable with that so we can continue to practice. And then we will continue to practice once semifinals are over up until the game. So like we have a good runway to hopefully give Caroline not just the practice of being a captain and organizing the conversation and like being the leader, but also making sure that the stimulus is provided there, because she's training by herself, you know, individually style for, you know, most of her training, but she still needs to have these experiences and know how it feels to be on a team and what that does to energy systems. And can you help motivate someone if they're slacking, or like, how do you communicate to someone if something's not going well? So as much a part of this as the fitness element.
It was very obvious. It was painfully obvious on reps when the whole team was together. And painfully obvious when we were just
how can the same movement be on this spectrum of difficulty?
Yeah, and it was like at one point it was like, is this round harder because we're more tired? And then in a later round it was like, wow, that was really easy. Or even just rep to rep, it was like, that was an easy rep, that was a hard rep. And it became just a lot more apparent how much the synchronization element is super important to success with the worm, just because again, it's like we'll do a round of 8 lunges, and we talked about it before, like when we were just warming up practicing, it was like none of these, like the weight of the lunge isn't hard. Like when you distribute that across 4 people, it's not very hard, but it needs to be distributed evenly, and evenly also means that we're all kind of moving as a single unit. So it was pretty obvious when it was like someone stepped too early, like someone in the front lunges a little bit too early, they're getting pulled back. Someone in the back starting to get pulled forward. It seems like being on the ends is maybe a little bit more challenging as far as like, or there's a lot more potential deviation from like how the group is moving. And yeah, it was fun. It was a good challenge, good combination of like fitness and kind of teamwork. And something else that I kind of have noticed is like what's one of the things that's challenging about being a team is like, as an individual, you have the freedom and flexibility to, at a moment's notice, adjust your pace, adjust your strategy, say, oh, what was going to be 15-6 is now going to be, 12-6, 12-6-4, whatever, 12-6-5, whatever the math works out to be. 12-6-3. Couldn't let that go, but it was the as an individual, you have the flexibility to adjust on the fly. With the team, there's obviously 3 other people that you need to think about, 3 different types of athlete with 3 different sets of strengths and weaknesses. And even if you are similar to your other athletes, the way that you would do the workout isn't necessarily the way that they would, kind of on the individual side. And having both like the physical, the capacity to be flexible and say like, man, I would feel a lot better if we did 8-3 instead of, or 8-4 instead of 6-6, instead of breaking this right down the middle. So many people have different
strategies and workouts and end up coming out of whatever movement at the exact same time.
Yeah. But as the team, it needs to be like, that you don't have that flexibility. So it was that was fun. That was interesting. And, we're definitely getting better at it, but it was a weird workout because it didn't feel like any single rep was like the hardest thing ever. But it's like as soon as the set ended, or like we were getting ready for the next movement, or you drop, once the worm comes off your shoulder, it's that like just punch in the gut, sort of knock the wind out of you,
big set of muscle ups,
gas tank feeling sort of thing.
The intensity is freedom thing applies so much to the team because there's the idea of, are we going to go again? Can I go again? Almost in a lot of ways gets removed. Like I could tell on reps when any of the 3 of you would be like, oh, okay, I guess like I'm going along for the ride here.
Yeah.
And I think that removes a level of stress, but we, take one step to the right into a different slider, and that doesn't mean that it removes the intensity.
Yeah.
So like again, like you said, when you're fresh and you do a big set of chest to bar pull-ups, while you're doing the chest to bar pull-ups, you're like, I'm fucking amazing. I'm Superman. This is, feet, hips. I'm flying. This is a joke. And then you hit the ground and you get 2 or 3 seconds before
joke's on me.
Heart rate just goes, through the roof.
Right.
That, thrusters, whatever. And I see that a lot with you guys. The other thing is, I didn't think about it from the perspective of how would you break up the movements. That's almost like a whole nother thing. Mm-hmm. But strengths and weaknesses, that whole world gets blurred so much because there's like, how would I attack the workout? And I think it just basically goes into like general fitness gets applied to everybody across the board, and you don't really know what workouts they're going to struggle in and what workouts they're going to do well in. Mm-hmm. And you just, I don't know. There's like this person's a little bit fitter than this person from like a 30,000 foot view. So all of these team workouts, this person's going to be better than this person. It's like, well, no, they have different movements in all of them. And not only are they different movements, but what you pointed out with the strategy, like it's kind of a complicated thing, but it's been really fun to like look at it from that perspective.
Well, and the interesting part about what you were saying is that, you know, you've got strengths and weaknesses. Like athletes will typically be really quick to point out things that they're good or bad at, but we have to remember that in CrossFit, it's completely comparable. You're comparing to other people. You're not comparing to an objective standard. You're comparing to what the current field is currently capable of, right? Yeah. So if the first open workout was Atlanta, then everybody would be like, wow, I'm really bad at running handstand push-ups, pistols, and chest to bar pull-ups, right? And it's like, or handstand push-ups. And it's like, are you bad at it, or is this a reflection of where the field is as a whole, and then you shrink that down from, you know, the open to a team of 4? It's like, well, this person is good at lunging, is good at X, Y, or Z movement, but it's like, well, how do they perform one compared to their other teammates, and is it an actual strength or an actual weakness, or is it actually right on par with the rest of the team?
Yep.
Or is it more of just like is it a strategy thing? Is it an execution thing? And the point that you made about like, there are plenty of instances where, like I'm like leaning over to pick up the worm and I'm like, it ain't gonna be me, but someone better fucking tell me 3 seconds. Like, give me like, I need a break.
Well, you guys asked for breaks, and you got like the acknowledgement that you wanted a break, but that if you're already speaking about a break, then the break might have already happened. A couple of times when she would say ready after you guys asked for a break, I was just like, I love this. I love this.
Yeah. Well, it's fun. It was funny too, because then it begs the question. It's like, it goes back to are you going? You're not necessarily exceeding your current capacity. Maybe you're just pushing at a point where if you were an individual, you would be taking that break, and your team is kind of pulling. It's like it's like instantaneously every rep is asking you like, are you ready? And I think that's where you can learn a lot about yourself going back to an individual from a team. It's like, how often were you standing over the worm getting ready for that next clean and jerk, and you were like, I think I'm going to die, but fucking hell if I'll be the one that stops the team from cleaning and jerking the worm. You pick it up, you make the rep, and then you have the same question the next, but you pick it up, you pick it up, you get it over your head. And then, you know, are you learning from that? Are you able to translate that to the individual side when it is, you know, 30 clean and jerks at the end of a workout? It's like, do you really need that extra rest, or can you bend over, put your hands on the bar, and, you know, do another rep?
The forced intensity is an interesting thing too, because one of the things I always talk to athletes about in affiliate class is like, when I walk over to you and say, pick it up, and you can just do it, what about me being there and saying that is different from you just doing it yourself and like convincing yourself to go or faster than you're, you know, ready for?
It's an exaggerated version of what a training partner does for you.
Yeah, it's the accountability that you don't otherwise have when you're by yourself.
You see that, and now you're like, all right, how can I reverse engineer it? That's how you could take something like a team competition or a team season and translate it later on to individuals. Like, you learn a lot about what you can actually do, because I agree with you. Like, I had the exact same mantra going in my head. It's like, I'm fucking dying, but I don't want to be the one that says, like, let's take long breaks. Like, even though I did have to call for a couple of them on last Friday, like, I don't want to be that person. So if there's a movement that was giving me trouble, which was the lunging was pulling me backwards, which was making my back tight, I was like, all right, if I'm going to ask for a moment break there, like, I have to be tough otherwise on other parts of the worm. So I'm not going to be the guy that like puts the worm down in the middle of the lunge. It's like, my back is fried picking up the clean and jerks, but like, I'm going to get through these because I don't want to slow the team down, because we have someone at the very back of the worm that is really trying to both engineer how to be a good leader, but also is looking for a good stimulus in the workout. And I don't want to be that person slowing them down, which is helpful for them, but also helpful for me, because now I can figure out like what that actual threshold, you know, where that actually lies.
Yeah. And that goes back to like, I don't know, I'm thinking of old school when he was like, I was watching, I was judging, look at the baby. Like, that's me in the corner watching these workouts. And it's honestly for all three of you, just because I can't help it. But that idea of confidence is proof. Now, down the road, I want you guys to have that built in on your own. I went harder today than I normally would. I have found a new gear. I know that I can push when I don't think I can. But a lot of times when that happens in the moment, It's just what's happening. So as the coach, it's like, I see that. I see you questioning whether you can go again, and then you pick it up and you get back into your body instead of your brain, you start moving. So it's like, okay, when you're going into an online qualifier or whatever, and I see you starting to question that, we've probably already talked about like, you have done this already. This has already happened. You don't need to question it. You need to get to work. Your brain is trying to sabotage you.
Yeah.
Like, stay away from that completely.
Agreed.
The one that we can hand out that could potentially be a team workout for people listening would be what you guys did second. So
Yahoo.
2 rounds, male, female pairs. Male pairs do a 400-foot farmer's carry with, just make sure that it's heavy. I mean, I had written it as 185, 105, I believe. 185 is very heavy. So I'm talking about 185 pound handle
hand.
per hand. What would you guys recommend? What would be a hatchet level? Probably, maybe even the 105. You should
be able to walk, hopefully
115.
I'd say you should hopefully be able to walk about 100 feet before you put it down. But like, I think we went 155, I think if I remember correctly, because we had 45s and 25s, and the thing weighs 15 pounds, so it's like 30 pounds off a normal barbell.
Yeah, it was about
so like
155.
Yeah.
I don't think that was too far off.
Yeah.
I think maybe I don't think 115 or 105 is the right call. I think it would be about 155 or 135, but Sherb and I were the male pair, and we basically did like, it was down and back, and we split up
roughly 25%.
It was like, it was like 100 feet, 100 feet. Then it was his turn, 100 feet.
And I think we could have gone heavier, but one of the things we didn't want to do is to slow down the transition because I tried
to time it. I wanted, so like when Kyle and Caroline came back in and set it down, you guys finished your GHDs, like boom. That was my goal.
Yep.
So you guys going lighter just made it a better workout, probably simulated 2 men on a CrossFit Games team, basically.
Yep.
So in this, we'll just use the 4 of us in the room as the scenario. So male are doing their 400-foot farmer's carry.
Split up, one person carrying, split it however you want.
Bill and I are the women. We are doing 30 synchro GHD sit-ups. I don't think either of us could do that, but we'll imagine the 2 of us just shredding.
You got a GHD over there. Let's see.
Bill and I can you guys imagine Bill and I crushing GHD sit-ups?
We gotta stop the podcast. We need to cut a scene of Drew and Bill going synchro on GHD sit-ups right now.
I'll do it if you guys dial 911 before.
Which one of you would need 911 first? It would have to be.
My back would snap. If you could just do it for enough reps. Drew's
upper half would just fall off of the GHD.
It would be on the ground. Guys, I told you.
It would be like one of the magic shows where like they saw him in half and they separate it. It's just like, why is Drew's still attached to the GHD?
So we're doing 30 synchro, and when Hunter and Sherb get back, we switch. So
when both finish their respective things.
Yep. You guys get back, we switch. Bill and I carry the lighter version of the farmer's handles. That was 105 for Caroline and Kyle. And you guys do the 30 synchro GHD sit-ups. Once everyone has done that work, we go over and we do 18 synchro muscle ups. Now,
as a team of
4. One way that you could potentially do this is, depending on your skill level, knock off one human at a time. So one of the things that we can use is, knowing that Caroline in this scenario would have to do all 18, you guys get to drop off one at a time, and it's essentially synchro teams of 3. An entire team of 4 could do that anyways. One person just drops off each set, and if that's like, oh my God, that's still a lot of muscle ups, you could do 2 and 2. So that's 2 rounds. It was a pretty decent rest in between. Oh no, there wasn't. It was 2 minutes.
I think it was 3, but
it was short.
Fairly short. And then there was a stipulation that you guys had to switch the order the second time through. I will say that I wrote in the note in Caroline's sheet that she had to carry it at least half of the total distance. And she thought I was talking shit based on me supposedly seeing her struggle with farmer's carries like 2 weeks ago, which may or may not have actually happened. I'm not sure. I was just saying, like, if Sherb's your partner, I don't want him taking off and doing 350 feet
Yeah.
and you finishing. So she carried the thing 200 feet straight and like put it down and like sort of looked back like, yeah, I'm fucking good at farmer's carry. Like, Jesus. I mean, it was great that it happened.
That shit
And now
personal.
Kyle's going to die.
Yeah, now Kyle's going to die because he has the expectation of doing that. I didn't get to see round 2. Caroline said it went much better. Is that an accurate statement?
Probably referring to the muscle up.
Muscle,
I guess,
that's all
but
it is, yeah.
I don't remember seeing her. I was flipping myself upside down and right side up on the GHD. So
Yeah.
we finished at about, the timing still worked out on both rounds.
They
where,
beat
like,
us-
once we finished our 30 GHDs,
Yep.
they finished their carry, and same thing, vice versa.
Yeah, they were a little faster on
we were
their
a little
carries.
slower on
Yeah.
our carry.
Yeah.
But
not no long layover. They weren't waiting for like 30 seconds when
5,
first
10
finished.
seconds.
Yeah, maybe like 2 or 3 GHDs. And then the muscle ups in the second go round. Like, I think one of the things that happened in the first round is just like underestimating what going from GHD right into muscle up does for people. And like,
Yeah.
I honestly found the round going from farmer's carry into muscle up significantly harder than GHD into muscle up, just
That
personally.
would definitely be the case for me.
But some people are like, you know, if their midlines cooked, muscle ups are impossible. So it's a little individual. So I think Kyle experienced a little bit of that on his first round because he ended on GHD.
If you only use your upper body and muscle ups.
I thought the GHDs would fuck up my muscle ups more. It turned out to be the farmer's carry where made the muscle ups worse.
And I mean, we did quite a few sets again, but I think we did 1 set fewer than the first go round. And like, we were just better in tune with like how the rotation works. So like, honestly, we probably could have, I don't want to, but we could have done a third round one more time to like, all right, now that we have like the one crappy round out of the way where we're figuring things out, now let's do 2 rounds to get it, you know, done well. But I think the second round of muscle ups, we were really well in sync, and there was no real long layovers. Like, there was no missed reps. No, hey, like, no, they weren't synchronized. And then whoever wasn't doing the muscle ups would stand in front or behind and just watch the group and just say good at the top. So we all just knew that we were in sync. So like, someone wasn't thinking they were in sync and they weren't.
Yeah. All right. We have reached the point in the season where the, you know, sort of warm-ups and strategy and what we think about workouts is a bit more hidden behind the curtain. So we got the age group semifinals that will be done when this podcast goes out, so we can talk about the workouts. And, you know, we've got 3 athletes, you know, we've got a host of athletes. We have 3 athletes that are, you know, podium potential athletes in the masters and teens divisions. And we want to give them all the information and don't want to give anyone else any of the information. It's pretty standard at this point in the year. Once it gets whittled down to that point, we're not going to, you know, do a podcast at the CrossFit Games and try to help out all the other athletes and let them know how they should be attacking this workout. So read through them, talk about them a little bit. You know, could end up in predictions, could just talk about whether, you know, the workouts are good. We'll see where it goes. But age group semifinals, workout number 1.
How far in the weeds do we want to go with like all the different age groups? Because there are some nuances as we get further along in this category.
As long as, so some of the workouts have weight differences that are significant enough that they should be mentioned.
We change the workout.
But like the nitty gritty, we don't.
Yeah, the only
we
one
don't
I can
need
think
to-
of is just like the requirements for the thruster muscle up. That's another
Sure.
one that's a little bit unique. But let's start with event 1. It's a 2-parter. First part's 100 points. Second part's 50 points. 4-time 1,000-meter row, 100 double unders, 20 shuttle runs. 750 row, 75 double unders, 15 shuttle runs. 500-meter row, 50 double unders, 10 shuttle runs. 250-meter row, 25 double unders, 5 shuttle runs. You have a 25-minute cap to finish that. As soon as you finish that, you move on to a 3-minute window for max rep snatches. And for the 35 to 39, and I think all the age groups all the way up until 45 are going to be using 155, 225 as like the 2 weights for that. And then the teenagers are like 80, the young teenagers are 85, 135. And then we have varying weights around the same thing. But I don't think this dramatically changes the strategy for anyone outside of like 35 to like 44. That group has a significantly heavier barbell relative to the capacity for the other groups. So like just saying what I would tell Jenna might be different. And then if I was working with Roy this season on like what he would be doing for snatches at the end. But, you know, you and I talked about this yesterday. The volume of rowing, 2,500 meters of rowing. There's 250 double unders and 50 shuttle runs across the entire workout.
Yep.
You know, timing on that, you know, 2,500 meter row is like 10-ish minutes for the average person, probably a little bit faster for the men, a little bit slower for the women. 50 shuttle runs is just under a half mile of shuttles, and you just did quarterfinals, so you have a good idea of like how long 50 shuttles would take. And then you have 250 double unders, which is, you know, for the best athletes, about 100 a minute, so 2.5 minutes of double unders. So, you know, I did the math today and said like mid 19 to like 21 is where we think like the best will shake out. Obviously, there'll be some variance in there and how fast things fall off, but I think the best athletes are going to be around 19.5 minutes there. With the real focus on like what is your run and row pace, because double unders are sort of fixed in the terms of their cadence and how long they take. So it's really about knowing yourself and realizing what pace you should be rowing at and what running pace should feel like in that. And if you're not sure, this is one of those things where you could go back and you could watch your quarterfinals and go, all right, I'm watching the 50 shuttles, the first 50 probably the most valuable because you're fresh. How long did it take me to do 20? Then how long it take me to do 15, how long it take me to do 10. You get rough timestamps for how that should go. So, you know, that's the biggest point of conversation I had with Jenna about this workout, because that's who I'm working with directly as a, you know, a remote coach. It's just like, do you know what row pace you should be? And, you know, we're talking about a little faster than 5K, but not dramatically faster, because again, you're going to be working out for about 20 straight minutes. So you go much faster than that, your double under suffer or your run pace suffers.
And one reason why you could potentially hold that is because of the descending
the
rep
breakup.
scheme. You get a fresh, what is it, 1K to enter. You don't, when you're thinking about a workout like this, let's say that it was rounds and you were getting into just rounds for time, as in like it's, you know, 750 every round instead of descending. If the other movements cause your heart rate to go higher than it would on the rower, and I'm not saying that's necessarily the case, but it probably is, you can't think about going faster than you would in 20 minutes because the rest of the workout is more challenging. So it's just it's important to understand where that's at, because if you bite off a little bit too much in that 1K, you're going to pay for it for the rest of the workout. Your heart rate should be ascending the entire workout. You should not put yourself in a hurt locker and then have it go down afterwards.
I think the only nuance to that is, because it's descending, the row matters less as you go. So that first 1K is the most important as far as like how much time you can gain. Understanding that, you know, 5 seconds faster, average split's only going to buy you 10 seconds total. So making sure that you're not leaning too far over versus bending over.
Yes. So for people listening that want to know, talk about know your enemy. This happens all the time. It's happening a lot right now with Metcon resets, because if an athlete doesn't do the math before the workout, it looks short and it's actually 22 minutes or 24, 26, and they have an issue. So know your enemy. How do you do this? I mean, whether you're a freak in the sheets or not, there's a way to, for formatting of a cell, there's a way to put it into hours, minutes, and seconds. So you can go into Excel and you can figure out what the rep speed is for something. If you don't have that, you know, sort of banked in your head from years of experience, you literally watch YouTube videos of people doing movements and time them out. Not all that challenging. And then you just run through the workout and you say, okay, we have, 2,500 meters, that's 5 500s. So 5 times whatever your pace is. That's how long it's going to take you to do that. We got 250 double unders. Those are 0.6 seconds a piece. That's 2.5 minutes. You can do that and run down through the total volume and start to get a feel for what this is. Because if you don't do that and you go into it and think at first glance, this is 12 minutes or this is 30 minutes, is going to be a problem, right?
Different gear in the car.
Exactly. So it's something that you can do to begin. And then if you want to go deeper, there's historical context. We have similar workouts either on the blog or, the DT-esque workout. We have a lot of data on how games level athletes have done with DT because of, 2015 and 2016. So there's a lot of data there, but know your enemy before going into it. And that could be for you, that could be for an athlete you're coaching, whatever. But take the time to do the analysis and do a little bit of homework. And the good thing is, as you get better at it, it's a lot quicker. Like when we're sitting in a programming meeting, it's, I think double unders take 0.4, not 0.6, that kind of thing. Once you get used to it, you can really get an idea and sort of quickly look at a workout and know how long it's going to take.
And one thing you can do with that, it does feel like it might feel like an extra unnecessary step, but you could instantly make the workout quote unquote easier because you don't go out at a belligerent pace that makes the workout harder from the beginning of the workout. Like this is one of those workouts where, you don't necessarily need to win the first 1K to have a good time. And in fact, if you do win the first 1K, you're probably going to do poorly on the entire workout.
Or coming first.
Yeah. You're Tia Claire to me and you do these workouts and you finish first in the world. But for most people, like understanding the strategy both helps you know your enemy better, which can relieve some of that anxiety, but can also help you realize that you don't need to scream out of the gate, which puts you in the hole that you just talked about, where now you're like, can I control my heart rate the rest of the workout? You know, if you're at 200 beats a minute after the 1K, you're in for a rough ride.
On paper, I like this workout, but
I have one thing about it.
in reality, we have had stupid workouts that smell like this now 2 rounds in a row. So I'll leave my judge. I want to observe this workout. I want to see at the highest levels, as we start to clear out the people who would potentially walk or whatever, as we get to the tip of the spear, does that change the workout? The problem is it hasn't in previous rounds. And now this is actually mixing some of the bad workouts together. I'm intrigued. I want to hear how people attack this workout and how it goes. But my thumb is, we're in Gladiator, and my thumb is parallel with the ground. It's not up or down yet, but it's wavering.
How do you feel about the way it ends?
What's the point structure for the first part? Because on this graphic it says 50 points for part B.
It's 100. It's 100 points.
Part B is this.
Part B is 50 points.
The 50 point snatch.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, because I was like,
the ending isn't as dumb because of part B.
Yeah, I think it's cool.
You don't think it's kind of a silly like transition just thing at the very end of the workout?
No. Execute.
I think it makes it a good test, right? It's like
Can you stay focused at the very end?
Yeah, I don't.
How hard do you run? I mean, we're getting into
yeah. So now we're thinking, like, that's why I asked about the points thing. So it was going to be like, if both of these are weighted equally, this is one of the rare instances where you might say, like, hey, you might actually benefit from going 30 to 60 seconds slower on part A, because if you get 2 more snatches, like that could be massive over a course of 3 minutes at that weight. But I think because it's
doing that without your competitors near you that's very
tricky.
stressful.
Yeah, very tricky. So I don't. I do wonder if it's. I don't know.
Like, it's the whole, like, if we're going to continue to do a half mile of shuttles mixed into every single workout, are we just turning around?
I do think this is better.
Should we just do 360 jumps?
I think that the super long shuttle that we saw in the age group quarterfinals, and then the super short shuttle we saw in the open, kind of like almost bracketed us as far as like, okay, 50 is probably a little bit too much, and 10 where you can walk and get a better score is probably too little. Like, we need to figure out what the distance is, or the duration on the shuttle run is, that it does what it's supposed to, that it matters enough in the context of the workout that you have to try, but that I don't know.
It needs to be more like what we did at camp. I do think
part of the issue is that because it's new enough, like, the only experiment we have is from the shuttle runs in the quarterfinals last year, and it was about this volume of at a time, right?
I think last year.
But at a time it was like 16 was the most. 16 was the most. So like, it mattered a little bit more, and I think just the movements that it was paired with made a bigger difference. Yeah, I'm a little bit on the fence, because it is one of those. It's a weird workout where, like, a lot, like, there isn't going to be a ton of variance in, like, the paces that people are holding, which begs the question, like, is it a good test where, like, people can separate themselves, or is it a bad test because people can't separate themselves, or is it a good test because everybody's so tight, like, you have no choice but to push the gas pedal a little bit faster than you want to, and, like, cardio stimulus for sure. So, and then followed up with just a, like, great. So you're
not cardio stimulus.
With a not cardio.
It's not a cardio barbell for you guys. Come on.
It's fine. I think I'm just going to use the F word. It might be fine.
Yeah, it might be fine. I got to see it in action. I got to see like one of the good things is they'll typically post the video of the world record, and if it looks like they're gaming the workout, I'm gonna
thumbs going down.
I'm gonna fall asleep. Sleeping emoji.
Part B.
Yeah.
Variance is going to be quite a bit by age group.
Dude.
Like, just based on the barbell
weights.
weights.
When does that barbell change weight? Or changed?
45 is when it starts to get lighter than 225 for the men.
What is it?
It goes to
205?
185.
And
A
what's
16, 17 is lighter.
No, that also. So the 45. So the 45 to 54 do the exact same weight as the teenagers in the 16, 17-year-old division.
Right, but typically the 35 to 39 and the 16 and 17 do the same weight.
Typically, yes. They chose not to this time, and I think it's just because of what they saw in the open with how that 225 snatch went for those
they
groups.
also used to
They
have
looked at the leaderboard and they were like, okay,
it
we
was
got the
also
same
like
answer.
it was
Rich
also
Frog,
like
Scott Panchik.
54-year-olds were expected to snatch. 2 years ago, it's like 54 sucks to be 54 and
Lift that bar.
hope you can snatch 225. Fuck.
So, thinking about the younger masters first, the 35 to 44 with the 155 for the women and 225 for the men, that's probably in the neighborhood of like 15 to 20 reps at the high end because it's only 3 minutes. I mean, that's 5 to 7 snatches a minute, which is pretty steady at that point in a 20-minute workout, I think.
I mean, it's a like good luck predicting that. You're talking about what was their strategy in round one. You've got people who are super strong that the second they're gassed, they can't lift anymore.
Yeah.
You've got people who are like
variables.
the opposite. Like
Movement
the scores
efficiency,
are
mobility.
The scores
demand.
will not be all over the place in the first one. The scores will be all over the place in the second one. And when they're jammed together like that, it's kind of cool because you can take your 50-point score and just climb a little bit in that first one.
Yeah. And then,
What's a 35 to 39 average snatch? Like 265?
No,
Less?
no, it's higher.
Think so? 275?
Yeah, I think 275 is probably where it's at.
275?
I think
So it's like an
275 is like the
You'd be
masters.
surprised at how many of
80%
those
kind of
dudes
barbell.
can snatch 285.
Yeah, I guess maybe it's
sad.
farther up. What about like 40 to 45?
That's probably 245.
Probably closer to 245, 255
And that's a
range.
At
still
that
a
point,
good snatch.
it's a mobility test.
Right.
At that
Yeah.
point. The guys who can snatch over, even 235 have impeccable positioning compared to the other people.
Yeah, and it just depends on like their background. Most of those athletes came from Olympic weightlifting and then got into CrossFit. They didn't start CrossFit and then got into Olympic weightlifting, and that's why they have that mobility and that ability to do that. So then moving on to some of the other age groups with lighter barbells. Thinking about the teenagers 14 to 15, masters 60 plus, they've got like 85 for the women and 125 for the men. So they're thinking like, good Lord, like you're doing grace at the end of this workout. Have fun. Yeah. So probably closer to that 30 rep mark, I would guess, for some of those athletes, especially if they've got some weightlifting background or they can move a barbell well. But I think probably realistically, it's probably mid 20s.
See, 185, 135 for 16 to 17?
Yes, for 16 to 17, yes.
This was the workout where they said it was 185, 125 for everyone, and then that doesn't apply to any of the divisions.
Correct.
Has there been any, do we know which is the typo? Because, we do on our site a lot of times bump the women's weight up 5 pounds heavier just because we run into way too many workouts.
The graphic only has the kind of the
185, 125, right?
It says 225, 155 on the Instagram graphic. Right. I don't have the website.
Official Amazon server score sheet has it at 125 on this one for the women and 185 for the men for the age group of 16 to 17-year-old, and masters 45 to 54. So I think it's 135 because that's what I saw on the internet afterwards, but this could be something they didn't update or maybe it's updated since, but since the screenshot, that's what it was. But again, just the only thing that really changes dramatically in that is just the cadence at which you move the barbell, with it being a little bit lighter than the 35 to 44-year-old like division. So again, just think another 5 to probably 8 reps for that group, because again, that doesn't seem like a tremendous leap up, but it is because it's only a 3-minute window. That's, another 2 reps per minute to another 4 reps per minute, which is, moving pretty good.
I love these workouts because this is the time of year where it's like, I'm not so sure that's your 90%. Your heart rate's at 175 and you're repping it out. I think you might need to reevaluate how you approach a barbell when it's, when it's over your supposed 100%. Because when these workouts get announced is when you get like, okay, the same person that's going to win the workout will call you in crying in tears. Like, I can't even snatch that. And it's an AMRAP. What the fuck is happening? They get like 19 and you're like, okay, congrats.
Just the moment that you're in.
Yeah. All right.
So there's event 1, A and B. Event number 2, which I think is probably the most interesting one of the entire weekend, just because of the way it's set up. I don't think it's going to be the most painful one of the weekend, but it's interesting.
A little bit flustered myself.
But it's 5 minutes
Yep.
to complete a requisite amount of muscle ups and thrusters per your age group.
Yep.
And then every rep after meeting the minimum requirement just gets added onto your score. And you can decide whether or not you want to add additional muscle up reps or additional thruster reps. That would be based upon your strengths and weaknesses. But guess what? It's probably not muscle ups.
not.
No, I know. It's not. It's not
You
muscle
didn't
ups.
make it.
Yeah, no.
You didn't make it if you're that much better at muscle ups.
Congratulations. Your workout is 5 minutes, 15 muscle ups, max thrusters in the remaining time.
Sounds easy.
Go on.
So
15 rep requirement, right? is the
So
minimum?
for some divisions, so 16 to 17 year olds and 35 to 49 year olds, they have to do 15 thrusters and 15 muscle ups at 95 for the women and 135 for the men. You go up in the age groups, the barbell weight drops a little bit and there's 5 fewer muscle ups required. So instead of 15, it's 10, and then it goes down to 5 muscle ups, and then it goes down to 15 chest to bar pull-ups for the the oldest female age group. But essentially, you hit the minimum requirement, and then a rep past that just goes on to your total score. And like you just said, cat's out of the bag. It's do the muscle ups as quickly as you can, and then rep out as many thrusters in the remaining time as possible.
I'm just trying to think of a scenario in which somebody's going to accumulate
Doesn't
reps
exist.
by muscle ups. It's like I am
you have to
I am currently
assume-
more capable of doing muscle ups than I am of doing a thruster, and I'm just like, what? I don't
what
know
world?
what human that is. That's 15 muscle ups, and then just do clusters. Like if you want, rip out a big set of thrusters, and then you could do clusters and be moving continuously. I just don't know what the scenario is in which somebody.
But Boz has to know that.
Sure, yeah, of course.
So
Like,
it's intentional
that's
of
why
5 minutes of thrusters after a skill buy-in, I guess you would call it.
Yeah.
Because that's probably, there are a lot of athletes that's going to take 3 sets for them to get that. So they'll
15?
go, yeah. So they'll go back and forth potentially to cut down on time of them not working. But yeah, it's
funny.
It's interesting.
Gabe and I had this same conversation. So I called him coming home from affiliate class last night because he's got a couple of masters in the 40 to 44 age group.
45 to 49.
Sorry, 45 to 49. Excuse me, boys. And
That's a compliment, right?
the question was like, when someone can't do 15 muscle ups unbroken, what do they do in between their sets?
That's what I was gonna ask.
And
Like, what do
Gabe
you-
was like, do they just rest? And I'm like, I don't like the idea of dead time in a competition. Like you shouldn't be a lot of like standing around doing nothing in this workout. So what I recommended was, rip off a big set that's not maximal. You stop like 1 rep before what feels hard. Go over and do a super small set of thrusters just so there's no dead time. And I mean like 3 to 5 thrusters, nothing crazy.
you could
Or
do it
even
as
just like even a couple or a couple
clusters.
small reps, and then go back to the rings. Maybe you finish it, and if you don't, you do the same thing one more time. Finish the muscle ups, and then congratulations, you're doing thrusters the rest of the workout. I think that is the best strategy because I just don't like the idea of someone standing around being like, all right, I'm not ready for muscle ups yet. Still not ready for muscle ups. I'm still not ready for muscle ups. Do something to fill that time, but don't overextend yourself to create more sets.
Is the athlete who can't do 15 unbroken muscle ups, or like can't do a good chunk of the unbroken muscle ups?
Are they fucking up their next sets?
Are they? Does it matter? Is it like, do they just do clusters until like? I don't see how the cluster is going to allow them to recover enough to do the muscle up. And
Well, I
maybe
don't
that's-
agree at all on the
cluster.
cluster
I wouldn't
thing.
do a
I wouldn't
cluster
have
either.
anybody do a damn cluster unless they were dying. Like thrusters are so much easier than clusters.
I guess I'm thinking like as the fatigue really starts to set in, I guess there's probably no scenario where you can't do like a set of
Are you
3
thinking like
thrusters.
you thinking like a pacer?
Well, no, I'm thinking like, okay, so you've done your 15 muscle ups.
Yep.
You did that unbroken. That's 45 seconds or so of work. You now have 4 minutes to do as many thrusters as you can. So we're going to assume you open up with a bigger set. Maybe the sets start to get smaller.
Descending sets until you hit your minimum, and then you
Right. So
go as
I'm saying,
often
I
as you
guess
can.
I guess it would be assuming that at some point someone gets to a minimum where doing 3 clusters is faster than doing a set of 3 thrusters, setting the bar down and resting until they're ready to do another set of 3, right? Is there a point at which the average time of singles is overall faster or smarter for an athlete?
Probably not within a 5-minute period. I don't think.
Maybe the bar's too light.
There's
for that.
also-
like they'll always be able to do.
Like you can probably do 15 muscle ups. It's close to your max set, but
close.
it's
It's very
in
close.
that would for you would be in trouble on the barbell.
Bad news.
You're a weird.
Bad news for me is I'm doing this workout tomorrow for Jenna. She asked me to do the run and see how it feels. And like, she is considerably fitter than me, like not the same ballpark. But in this instance, in this workout, I can hang with her on these two movements. So my strategy tomorrow, and I was going to try to bait you into the other strategy that I haven't told you about yet. So congratulations, you're hearing about it now. This is from Gabe, though, so he told me to tell you that you have to do it.
Oh, yeah, perfect.
Gabe said no problem.
Take coaching advice from Gabe.
But
come over here.
My strategy was I'm going to try to open with like between 8 and 10 muscle ups, go over, do 3 to 5 thrusters, finish the muscle ups, and then just do thrusters the rest of the time to see what kind of score I'm going to get. Because part of this is like figuring out what that like line is. Sure. And while I won't have a CrossFit Games level score, I'll have a competitive score in this workout. And the alternative theory was to do what you just described. Let that person do 15 unbroken and see what happens. So like, is one strategy a bit more fortuitous to getting a better score?
Am I the 15 unbroken?
You would be the 15 unbroken. You're welcome.
So, all right. I mean, that second strategy, you better be damn good at muscle ups. I think the second strategy is,
I don't know about all that.
When you're doing 30 muscle ups for time, you don't do 15 to start the workout, right? You don't do as many as you possibly can and then essentially fall apart. But you also, like, getting to 15 doesn't take very long as you kind of break it up. So the devil's advocate to you is someone doing all 15 muscle ups, but doing all 15 in a row is akin to like people thinking that it's an assault bike, so I have to sprint. Like, no, it's a bike. Like, you can go at whatever fucking pace you want. So not doing any thrusters in there is leaving the muscle ups, I believe, with the least amount of fatigue that you could possibly have. I don't think it's about whether you're going unbroken or not. You better be damn fucking good at muscle ups, because whatever, if let's say your max set is between 14 and 20, reps 12, 13, 14, 15, you're blasting your upper body, like absolutely annihilating your upper body. And if you're one of those people that thinks that the press is the challenging portion of the thruster, you're burying yourself. You're absolutely
that's what
yourself.
I mean, but that's what I'm thinking is like on a muscle up, like there's the line, right? It's like you cannot do another muscle up. Like at some point you have to stop. You're going to fail. Is there a point with the thruster where it's like, use your fucking legs, like use your legs as much as you can. I understand that at some point you can fail that thruster, that press starts to get challenging, but I'm just thinking like you're someone who's like, okay, my plan is to do a really big set and you do 10. It's like, but then again, is that athlete going to really be fucked by the thruster? Or maybe it is just like, they do a small set of thrusters, they go over and they do one muscle up, and they go do a small set of thrusters and they do one muscle up, and they just go back and forth like that. So until they get to the 15 and then, make a call.
No,
but
so many transitions though, right? I mean, I understand what you're saying. I know you don't literally mean just one, but like that's a lot of transitions. And that's another thing that can be wasted in this workout is if you're going back and forth a zillion times between two things, that is wasted time.
The only thoughtful strategies that pass the like sniff test to me are 2 to 4 sets of muscle ups, no matter what. Are you doing a small amount of thrusters during your rest period or not? That's the only place.
I'll let you know tomorrow.
Yeah, that's the only place that my brain goes with this.
I
think you're overthinking it. It's 5 minutes. We already have the like. Everyone else tried these wacky ass strategies in the previous one, and Vellner just did all of his muscle ups and got them done and then got to work. Like we've been given at least some historical context within this, and it's like, get the hardest movement done first.
Yeah.
That's kind of what it is. There is, of course, nuance with the fact that it's 135.95, but I mean, we saw at the CrossFit Games how well they handled those 185 thrusters in that long workout. Like, there's something to
like
them asking you.
Way shittier if it was 95.
There's something to them asking you to do something in this like large batch where you change how you think about it. It's the exact same thing with 225 snatch. If you had to hit one at the end, you would think about it way different for that single than you would with them saying you got 3 minutes to get as many of these as possible. Just attacked in a different way. So
I'll never forget that.
We'll let you know how the testing goes.
I don't know how.
I'll never forget that 185 thruster and that ladder of 10-1 because the CrossFit main site posted that and they had, I don't remember who it was talking on it.
Well, I know exactly who it was.
Well, I was going to keep the name out if I do know who it is. But I was like, you should try to do those 10 thrusters unbroken. I'm like, how many people are following main site are going to rip off 10 185-pound thrusters?
We want you to rip out 10 unbroken
Fikowski did triples the whole workout.
The guy finishes the top 5 every single year.
Mallory O'Brien was the only person who followed Paul Tremblay's advice.
Okay, I was gonna say, yeah, so good.
Well, I mean, part of it's a nod to him. He said shit like to Cody, like, I've never failed a lift in my life. Like,
I believe that.
Yeah, exactly. So part of it's like a tip of the cap. Like, there's some humans down here.
That's some
you up there,
some real people
giving
down
us,
here.
yeah, exactly, giving us advice for this.
I'm curious to know what your guys' thoughts are on tests that have a very, very broad, like, strategic element to it. Because me personally, like the choose your own adventure sort of thing.
Yep.
I don't know that I like it. I think it, like if the purpose is to find the fittest person, I don't like when there's a test where it can be gamed and something. And maybe this isn't the right example for it because I think there's a finite number of strategies to execute this workout, but when you give kind of the athlete the liberty to decide that, I guess you are sorting through people who like are smart versus not, which is important.
The only reason I
don't
disagree is because of my history with knowing how cerebral the best athletes are in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And that honestly goes across all sports. It's not just like the people who are able to take a similar genetic makeup and background and maybe even work ethic and then somehow ascend to another place. It's like, yeah, they get it. They understand the game. They know how long certain reps take. They know what happens when, this interferes with that. So I would just say that so much of the unknown in sports and why people are better or worse have to do with that idea of student of the game. So yeah, if it was like absurdly complicated, I would agree with you, but I think this is one of those ones where it's going to come out in the wash. Your strategy will get you maybe 5 more reps than somebody else. The only thing is, can you nail the strategy for yourself on the first go? Because that's how a competition like this works.
Yeah, I like the inventiveness of it. The first time it came up in the Open, I think it was 2020 with the muscle-ups, wall balls, and rowing. Like, I like that it has shown up before. I just don't want it to become played out and done too many times. Like, I like this application, but if this became a thing that every year in semifinals there was some sort of make your own adventure kind of workout, I kind of lean your direction. I don't know if I would like it.
AMRAP 5 minutes, V-ups, and shuttle runs.
Nice.
Choose your own adventure. Boom, programmed. All right, sure. What's next?
Gross. The next workout is what I think is going to be the most terrible workout of the entire competition when it comes to just energy systems and how you're feeling by the end of it. Test 3 is a 2-parter. Part A is worth 100 points. 5 2-minute intervals followed by 1 minute of rest. 7 deadlifts, 5 cleans that are coming from the floor, and 3 shoulder to overhead. The 35 to 44 is 125, 185. Then the other age groups are slightly less, but I don't think there's so much less that they dramatically change the workout. So I don't know if I have to read through all of them.
No, that's fine.
So right after that, you go directly into part B, which is 5 minutes to find a max freestanding handstand hold inside a 4x4 box, very similar to the online part 1 of the CrossFit Games.
And it is the longest single duration that you do.
Correct.
It's not
you have
an
as many
accumulative
attempts
score.
as you want. It's one single long duration effort. And what's nice about it is if you decide you need an extra go round, you can kick up at 4:59. As long as you're in a handstand before 5 minutes, you can go past the 5-minute cap. So there's an opportunity to take multiple attempts if necessary. Right off the bat, this is about as gassy a workout as it gets. If you think you like DT, imagine if you did fewer reps and you could go faster and the barbell's a little bit heavier.
And it's from the floor.
It's from the floor.
Yeah, there ain't no hang cleans.
So, you and I talked about this yesterday, like quick math on the round. It's probably like a, top end, like 40 seconds, even though no one's going to hold that the entire time. It's probably closer to 50 seconds for the fastest to up to like a little over a minute. So you look at the math there and you go, all right, this is a 10 plus round kind of workout. So 2 rounds per interval. And you do need to restart on the deadlifts every interval. So regardless of where you make it in the AMRAP, you'll always restart back on 7 deadlifts.
I think 10 rounds
yeah,
personally
I
is
was gonna
closer to the like, I don't think it's 10 plus. I think a power clean in terms of rep speed
Oh, yeah, it's
and
way
range
more
of motion is very different. So in my mind, I went to let's find the timing, let's find the historical context, and then back down the original answer of if this was at the CrossFit Games and it was just DT, you are probably looking at, you know, something dumb like 12 rounds from one of those people that doesn't, you know, Ben Smith or Sam Quan, somebody that's just not going to put the barbell down.
Yep.
But like, yeah, with the power clean being in there and asking yourself, am I going touch and go? What does that do to me metabolically? What I will say is strategically, this is one of those workouts where you can fucking go full old school, you know, put your leather jacket on and, you know, put 1 pound change plates on the bar. There's nothing that you can do in this workout that won't equalize it back to what you are going to get for a score, unless you are an absolute moron with the way that you pace. You go way too fast or way too slow, or you move like shit. You're going to get the score that you should get if you bear down and don't move like an asshole. Like,
How many people are going to do deadlift singles?
I don't think anyone competitive. I think people can break up the deadlift, but I don't think singles is a good deadlift strategy for this.
I think I would do singles.
like the whole workout, or once you
I
got
think the
tired.
whole workout.
It might be too slow at the beginning.
Yeah, we did the class workout. Did you do the class workout? It was
Which one?
and it was not. I think it was 9 minutes, 8 minutes of 8 deadlift, 6 hang power clean, 4 chest to bar pull ups.
No,
So
I didn't do
very
that.
very similar. Deadlift singles the whole way. Saved my grip. Let me.
Is it
like, stay
dangerous to do
continuous
deadlift
move.
singles with the judging? Like, do you have to overcompensate for that at all?
Potentially, yeah.
Because like in an affiliate class, you know you're shooting for I want to get better today, I want to get stronger,
Yeah.
intensity.
People aren't, I don't think, are going to be doing touch and go deadlift or or power cleans, excuse me, like they would for a hang clean in DT, where obviously grip's a huge
was a hang
factor here.
clean.
This is power cleans from the floor. Do you risk going slower or not using that stretch reflex to your advantage in the deadlift to make the deadlifts quote unquote easier by doing all singles? Like, I don't think you have to go on 7 unbroken the entire workout. I definitely do not think that's the case, but I don't know if I would go singles because I don't think grip is going to be the premium here. I really don't. I think it's going to be heart in your throat. I think grip will get annoying by the end, but the only thing you have to hold on to for an extended period of time is going to be the deadlift, because the cleans, you're probably going to drop every single rep, and then the shoulder to overhead, small impact in the front rack, but relatively minimal compared to something like going through DT, where, you know, the best are expected to do like 11 deadlifts, then 1 deadlift, 9 hang cleans into 6 jerks, and then repeat 4 more times. I don't know.
It's 6 seconds of shoulder to overhead per round.
Yeah,
So
at best.
that means it's what is it, 9 minutes and 54 seconds of deadlifts and power cleans.
Yeah.
Not that
I mean, it's a low percentage of the reps
is
and the
negligible.
timing is so quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I do think 10 plus rounds is probably going to be that, just because you are afforded that 1 minute like reset, which I think is going to help a CrossFit Games athlete, especially, or a high level CrossFitter,
This
because
is also 100 points, right?
Yes,
100 points
You
and then 50.
also, did you say you start over every round?
Correct.
It always starts with the deadlifts?
always starts with deadlifts.
So that also would drive the score down potentially a little bit. Not picking up where you left off, because if you start to bias the workout more to
Towards the
deadlifts and power
pulling, yeah.
cleans, there's going to be ramifications of
Yeah,
it. for sure.
EMOM would be tough. I guess because it's 2 on 1 off, that's more probable. But
That's sort of why
think
I
an
said
EMOM
10
would be
plus
challenging.
was be probable, because of the 1 minute injected rest in there, which is basically you finish that round, you walk
But
around
EMOMs
your
are
box.
challenging because you're forced to stop. You know what I mean?
I was saying more like
Because like that complex ain't taking
doing
you
10
anywhere
rounds. I think
near a
I was
minute.
saying doing 10 rounds,
Yeah,
like averaging
right.
an EMOM.
But like, how
might
long
be-
does that round take you?
Yeah,
That's pretty quick.
Yeah, for sure.
Just do like a rest to work interval. Work for 45 seconds, then rest for 15, and start again, and not following the top of the next minute.
Yeah, it's a gnarly workout. I mean, again, how we look at it, you look at it from the perspective of what is 5 rounds of DT is X amount of reps, 5 rounds of this workout. You can compare it that way. We have 7 minutes and 55 seconds for heavy DT at the CrossFit Games, which is 205, but the relationship between the fitness and the skill level of the people that were doing it at 205 down to 185 might make it more of like a 1-to-1 comparison.
27 versus 20.
And then
15
we
reps.
got double DT in there at 1137. So we've got, you know, There's rest periods obviously built in, so that would change that. If they got to rest then, that time will be a lot faster. So again, just if you are a coach or an athlete that feel like you're on an island a bit and need to know what these workouts are, this is kind of the easiest way to do it.
And then you move on to part B. You have 5 minutes to establish a max freestanding handstand hold. What I told Jenna, based on like her comfort with the movement, is that, with 5 minutes of time, you don't need to kick up into your handstand the second the last interval takes. You might want to take 60 to 90 seconds, depending on like your comfort with freestanding handstands, because you could get upwards of 3 attempts in this. But 3 attempts is like, you got to start within like 30 seconds of that window starting.
We also don't know how many attempts you're going to get. That's all predicated on how long you're kicking upside down.
Correct. So like what I advice was her is like rest 60 to 90 seconds and then do your first attempt with the goal of hopefully getting somewhere around a minute. Like that, I think that would be kind of the mark they need to get to, based on the fact that the top 5 male CrossFit Games athletes did about 90 seconds and females were about 2 minutes, with, catcher being the outlier at almost 3. That I think going back to like masters athletes, they're probably looking for north of 30 seconds, just based on like rougher mobility and experience with this type of movement. The teenagers might have a little bit more of a background in gymnastics, might allow them to get a bit more. So I'm thinking like around 30 plus seconds for the masters, and then for the older masters, probably closer to a minute for the younger masters, and then like about a minute for the teenagers. So 2 really good attempts is what I'm thinking for most people on that.
Do either of you remember how quick the turnaround was at the 2020 online games from when they announced it to when they had to do it?
I don't.
I was coaching athletes, and I don't remember.
When they announced the workouts and when they had to do it?
I just want to talk
a week in advance, maybe.
I don't remember what the timeline was on that.
Yeah, me either. So the reason I'm saying that is because if you're the type of athlete that gets, they got 4 days with these workouts announced.
Yeah,
you got Friday. 4 days to practice figuring out how to find that balance point, and you still can't do it. There are 2 reasons why. One, that your headspace is just fucked and you've decided you can't do something that you definitely can, or you just didn't pay attention to being upside down all year long. Like that amount of time for you to figure that out, like it's like the second something like that is announced, if you're doing an online qualifier, it doesn't matter what competition it's for. If something gets announced and you get stressed out by it, get into the fucking gym and start working on it.
Well, it's funny you say that, because
you will figure it out if you have a good attitude.
2 years ago, Jenna was coming up to Maine for, I want to say it was probably just like a games prep kind of weekend. And one of the things we dug out is we had the handstand ramps. She had never used one before. And like, she went from not being able to take 2 steps up the ramp to getting over the ramp in like 30 minutes. And that was just like, I'm going to keep going and I'm going to keep going.
Well, and the stakes were low too. And that's another proof moment. Yeah. It doesn't matter what the stakes are. You know what I mean? It's the reality of you're in a gym. That's your body. That's that ramp. There you go.
Yeah,
like
figure that out.
Figure it out.
Yep. And then again, that's all it is. And that's anyone who's asked me about it, because I've got a couple of DMs that have come my way. It's like, unless you are phenomenally confident in your ability to do that movement, do it. And you can almost not overdo it. I don't know how someone could overdo practicing their handstand holds in the next 4 days. Is there any world that you guys could see that someone could overdo practicing their handstand hold? Well, not you specifically, but like people who are aspiring to compete at this stage. Could anyone overdo this movement?
I wouldn't do a handstand hold for like 2 hours, but
sure,
I would probably be fine to. I don't know. The answer is no.
Yeah, I don't think
you could practice it 2 or 3 times a day, as long as because if you got really good at it, there'd be an insinuation that you
also
might need to
box, the 4x4 box is. It's not huge, but like the ability to move around in the box is very different than a completely static freestanding hold, which I could definitely see at the games being like, you kick up, like
your hands move, it's over.
Move one of those fucking fingers. I swear to God, Castro's going to come through the roof and chop it off.
He's got a butcher knife. He's just
yeah. Or on the parallettes like we saw at Wadapalooza.
Yeah.
Only thing I would add there is that like if you know when you practice these, pay attention to how you move around. Like when you're doing your like simulated handstand hold, if you find you're someone that always kind of drifts forward, start in the back part of your box. If you're someone that leans left, start in the right side of the box. Like little nuances to like knowing how your body reacts to time under tension in a handstand hold freestanding can give you indications of where you should start your freestanding handstand hold. Maybe not in the middle of the box if you need to be towards the back or the front. Like I think there's a lot of value in addition to practicing at this skill of the movement, is learning a little bit about like, hey, maybe I added 5 extra seconds because I started in the back half of the box. And I knew that I was going to step eventually in the handstand hold. And this gave me an extra couple of steps that gave me a few extra seconds in the handstand hold. So I think there's a lot of value in just like going over to a 6x4 horse stall mat, taking chalk or a piece of tape, drawing a line across it and going, all right, this is my box. Practice, practice, practice.
True.
All right. The finale. 100 points. Finale. Workout number 4. 20 burpee box jump overs into 2 rounds of 20 kettlebell box step ups and 2 rope climbs. As soon as you finish those 2 rounds, you progress to 2 more rounds of 20 kettlebell goblet squats and 2 legless rope climbs before ending with 20 burpee box jump overs. Couple nuances here. Everybody competes on a 20-inch box. Women will use a 53-pound kettlebell. Men will use a 70-pound kettlebell until you get into the really young teenagers or the really old masters, at which point the only real change is going to be a lighter kettlebell and a shorter rope, actually, for the 14, 15-year-old teenagers and the masters 55 plus.
Just love how the kettlebell was on the equipment list and you fucking chose goblet squats and step ups. God damn it.
When I heard this movie, I thought it was...
think
can use
that
a dumbbell
this is
for
like a preview. I'm just asking, like
I'm sure. Yeah, maybe it was just like, hey, you're
gonna need one next
You're
year.
gonna need one of these,
Yeah.
and we're gonna do an actual kettlebell movement next year,
Right.
maybe. But I thought it was hilarious when I was
yeah.
like,
I thought it was
kettlebell.
I thought for sure it was gonna be farmers
kettlebell step up. Okay, kettlebell goblet.
Kettlebell,
Fucking
open your door.
trolls.
More gyms have another devil's advocate because it's built into my personality. More gyms have 2-poot kettlebells than they do 70-pound
Likely.
dumbbells.
Fair.
How do you have to? Is there a stipulation on how to hold it? I'm assuming you can just hold it however you
The
want.
step ups
Can't
has to be
rest it on your body.
in front of your body. You have to hold it against your chest in the front of your body.
Can't put it on your shoulders.
Cannot
Can't
put
be
it-
below your waist.
No, cannot do that. Same for the goblet squats.
Might also be a variance in like the style of dumbbells that are available. So there's
The one thing I didn't see is if you need the
different size heads and stuff
kettlebell
like that,
upright or it
so.
can be upside. I don't actually know about that. I assume a goblet you could hold like this, but I don't know if you have to hold the handle to the ceiling or the handle to the floor. That's the one thing I don't actually know. I'm sure it's in the rules. I just
20-inch box too for both men and women. There's a good equalizer.
I like it.
Yeah,
I think it's
24-inch box for some, like especially some of the shorter people. It's just like literally fucking impossible.
Yeah, my question though is that makes I think that makes it more comparable male to female because we see it at the affiliate where the 24-inch box takes men. It's like heavier weight and higher box is proportionately a bit more difficult. But does a 20-inch step up? Does that get hard for only 20 reps?
Time
I mean,
and
I guess you
attention,
just
I think,
try.
is
I
just-
guess if you go fast, it's hard.
Well, what's nice too is you don't have to alternate legs, so you can go like rapid fire on one leg, so you could technically pick up the cadence, which would increase the intensity of the movement.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to switch legs every step. You could do the entire workout on one leg if you wanted to.
Do the whole
sounds
workout
like
on
a-
one
that
leg and
sounds
then
like a-
shred those final 20
that just sounds like a
Trip over the box,
judging
20
fucking
reps.
nightmare.
Yeah, so thinking about that workout right off the bat, there's 40 burpee box jump overs, which is like 2.5 to 3.5 minutes of burpee box jump overs. Probably not 3.5 for the fittest, but like that's kind of the little bit of the range there. Then you have like those.
minutes?
You
I have
those-
that at 240
Yeah, then you have those
based on the whole workout.
2-round couplets there. You know, they're both probably somewhere around 2.5 minutes a piece. So you and I time this out at like the best going to be somewhere around, I bet, like 8
The squats and legless will take longer than the.
Yeah, a little. Yeah, for sure. So I'd say somewhere around 8.5 to 9 minute workout for the fittest is kind of what we clocked it at. I think it was like 8:45 or 8:50 is what you and I came up with. But this workout really is just about how much homework have you done this year on your legless rope climbs? How efficient are you on that? And how well do you know yourself when you can go up for reps 3 and 4 and not get stuck? Because a no rep on a legless rope climb is congratulations, you've bought yourself another extra minute in the workout because it's very
This would be
unlikely.
fascinating though. Like I'm thinking carnival, you shoot the fucking water through and the horses go up. This is one of those workouts where depending on your size, your fitness level, your skill acumen, where you would see athletes and you would just see them trading off spots of like big athlete typically loves the legless rope climbs, typically doesn't like the burpee box. Obviously I'm generalizing, but there's ways where you can move back and forth and race people and be way ahead and then, you know, come up right next to each other because yes, there are 4 legless fairly close together, but like that's right on that line. Like you have to be really bad at legless not to be able to do those, I think.
Man, I think there's a sneaky or not so sneaky. There's a lot of movement interference that's happening on these. The specifically just being forced to hold your kettlebell in the front position.
Yep.
Just the
Such a holding bicep.
just the bicep chest kind of compression sort of thing, burpee box jump over, same way, step up, rope climb. Like that's a lot of movement interference. So I could see a lot of people getting themselves to the legless rope climb and being like, uh-oh.
Yep.
So I think I see this as definitely a bit of an athlete IQ, bit of a trap, especially if you're not super confident in what your legless rope climb capacity is, especially under like muscular fatigue. Like there'll be a lot of metabolic fatigue too with the squats, but
I like the buy in, buy out. You get your fresh ones, and then you get your it's over. So
that
you
second
better
set of
bring it
burpee
through
box
like
jump
that.
overs might be fun to watch,
especially at 20 inches.
Yeah. Oh, that's true. Yeah.
What I'm interested to see here, and I think this will be one of their points of contention when they judge this, is like, are you standing all the way up on the box step ups, and are you standing all the way up on the goblet squats? Because that's something they really hammered people for in the individual quarterfinals.
And it's the knee. I mean, we can't help you now, but it's your knee. It's not your hip. Yeah. When the implement is essentially pulling you forward on the squat. When you've got the goblet squat or you've got that front rack, a lot of the no reps that they hand out in the open are people flashing their hip and not their knee. That was what a lot of a bunch of the people complaining that it was bullshit. That it wasn't their hip. It was their knee.
The only time I see people doing those wrong is when they shoot their knees straight and they're hinged forward. Their hips are hinged forward. So maybe not, but
they try to stay vertical essentially.
Well, that's what I was saying about the step up too. It's like if you don't have to alternate, there's a little bit more. You can go faster basically, right? So it's just like you just step down, step up, and how quickly are you going?
Rules, but I imagine both feet have to touch the top of the box every single time.
And
so
the
that
bottom.
tap.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so that might
still
help.
the same.
I'm sure, but it's still like
a flash versus
it's like that's very quick. The tapping of the box is different enough from like both feet are together on top of the box, then the other foot comes down. So the judging standard on the step up and squat might be interesting.
Now, I don't know if you guys have anything to say about these workouts, but I think order is another interesting point of conversation here. And I've talked to
they're doing the passwords.
Yeah. Well, I know that you have to dictate which order you have to go in. Like you have to do the first two, then the second two. You have those two windows for submissions. But I mean, in terms of like, would you do test 2 before test 1 or test 4 before test 3? As far as I know, there's been no rule against it. Jen and I've talked about this, but the way the workouts read, I don't really see an instance where you would necessarily want to flip-flop either test and gain some sort of advantage by doing so. Like, unless muscle ups are, you're somehow worried that the pulling on the rower is going to really jack up your ability to do muscle ups, or maybe pulling on the barbell for the snatch messes up your muscle ups, or if you're someone a little nervous about legless rope climbs, maybe you do that workout first relative to the other one. But I honestly am advocating for like kind of going in order. I don't really see a necessity to change up the order based on the flow of the workouts. I don't know if you guys have a differing opinion on that, but to me, these kind of
read the legless would be the asterisk.
Yeah, legless climbs.
That would be the one that I would care about the most. Like if that is a true GOAT for you, but otherwise you're capable of making it to the CrossFit Games, you got to find a way to prioritize that. All right. That's, I feel like, fairly simple.
Yeah, as far as I know, they get the passwords for the first 2 workouts on Friday at 3 p.m. and they have from Friday at 3 p.m. till Saturday at 3 p.m. to do the first 2, and then the other 2 from Saturday to Sunday. So I believe Jenna's planning on doing the first 2 Friday evening, like right at the submission start, and then one more in the evening, and then one more Saturday morning, and then finish Sunday morning after prom with her final workout.
Thumbs up or thumbs down on first glance at the programming? Thumbs up from Sherb.
I don't like how the first one ends, but
I mean, at the end of the day, I think the right people will go to the CrossFit Games, so thumbs up in that sense. I did note it. I feel like we've had a fuckload of like clean-esque movements. It's like 1 rep max thruster, heavy clean and jerks in quarterfinals. A lot of clean shoulder to overhead, front rack type movement, thrusters.
It's because Dave was frisky for snatches, so Boz is trying to be different.
Then like the descending, the first test, I guess the rest of the tests fall into have a different format to them. But the first test, when I was like, there's a descending rep scheme, I think the quarterfinals had like 2 21-15-9 descending rep scheme type thing. It was a little bit redundant in that sense, but I mean, I ultimately like I don't feel. Some of them are cool. A couple of the tests are cool. I like the final event. I don't know. I don't have like a huge strong opinion because I think the fittest people will go to the CrossFit Games. I don't think there's anything egregious about the programming that's like you're going to get the wrong people at Madison.
Yeah, I agree with that. I asked that question intentionally because there's a part of me that wants to just put it out into the world. Like if you are listening to this podcast and you want us to pander to the rest of the community and essentially get our content from other people the way that a lot of other content creators are, they just bounce the same ideas off of each other.
Or just talk shit about how terrible it is.
Yeah, that won't happen. And I really don't think you guys come to us for that. Like we're not like as much like, I don't know, entertainment in terms of like, let's give you the edgy response of doing these things. And like we joke about the difference between our coaching acumen and our business acumen, but I'm just like, I'm not going to fucking pander to anyone really in any way, shape or form. I might pander to you guys as a tactic to try to get you fired up.
We'll see.
Yeah. So I feel like I got to bring that up because it's a thing right now, very much in the creator space. And I want you guys to know that you can deprogram yourself and have your own personal opinions about things. You don't need to watch other people's stuff and then go, yeah, that's how I feel. Because there's a good chance that they might just be good at articulating what they're saying or show a level of confidence, like that kind of thing.
That shit kind of sucks too, is that like most of those things kind of come off on a negative spin. And it's like, why would you want to inject more negativity into your life?
Then people are making
with your
content like,
consumption?
is CrossFit dying because all of the people in the creator space are being negative about it? And it's like, you guys are creating a narrative.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, 100%.
I hope you are making money off of it and, good for you. But yeah, I don't agree with a lot of the,
Yeah, I don't
but then again, that's not our lane. That's not what we do. All right. We have a couple we've been going for a little while, so we'll go a little bit more quick hitter on this, but the final two suggestions that we didn't get to last week for topics. Number one, how to get strong without hypertrophy. This is an extremely complicated topic for a bunch of different reasons. And what I don't want to do is make an assumption about the athlete. There are different perspectives to look at it from. I think we probably don't need to have a voice in the whole conversation of, how women feel about this and how society wants them to look a certain way. They want to be good at CrossFit, but they also want to look the way that society wants them to look, quote unquote. I don't think that also probably isn't our lane, but that's something where I personally love how the community of women in CrossFit have banded together. And that could be in relation to how they lift, how they compete, how they eat, all of these different things. And they find that sort of community in a way. So I would say that if this is about that, then maybe go, look at some of those resources and have better conversations with people in your community. We also get athletes that come in. I mean, we had a professional boxer that went to the gym for a while and he didn't want to lift and he didn't want to do certain things because it just became really challenging for him to keep his weight down. And there's something to, the metabolic, push that you get when you are lifting. Your body's like, hey, you're lifting. I'm going to crank the heat up on this furnace so that you give me more food and we can rebuild.
Yeah.
And that can be a recipe for, gaining a pound or two at a time of muscle when potentially you don't want to. And we all obviously know people on the bigger side in CrossFit that have to pay attention to that as well, because if they get to a certain size, they're not going to be able to be competitive in the more body weight type stuff. There are ways to avoid hypertrophy,
Fat boy.
but they're counterintuitive to what we talk to you guys about in terms of recovery. Like it feels wrong for me to tell you to not eat as much of this or to change your like ice bath to this portion of the day, because I know in fact that if you're in our Discord, you're a CrossFit athlete. And if I'm telling you to under recover intentionally, that feels
I think there's so many variables in that question, like you said, but like whether it's an individual, you also have to keep in mind, like you're asking CrossFit coaches. So my question is like, what are you worried about sort of thing? Like, are you one of those freak high level athletes who, is at risk? Like if you do too much of X, Y, or Z, you walk into
the gym and you see a barbell and you're like,
like you inflate, but at the same time, it's like, that's a really small end of the spectrum. And then the same thing on like the we'll occasionally have a female member who talks like, I don't want to get big or bulky or something like that, and just kind of trying to talk to them about the differences in like in testosterone levels and what
it's so hard to get jacked.
Yeah, it's like I admire your like, I don't know if it's a confidence thing or maybe it's probably more just a lack of understanding, but like I'm not sure if you know exactly how hard you would have to work to inflate to the level that you are like you're concerned about.
Right.
But that's again neither here nor there. It's more like, if you're a CrossFitter, what are you concerned about? The second thing is like, so many different things that go into play with that. It's like, okay, well, we know that we want to do higher rep stuff with hypertrophy. It's like, well, what happens when there's 100 thrusters in the Metcon? It's like, is that high rep? Does that impact you in a certain way versus someone else? Right. So it's got a fuckload of nuance to it. Well, how much are you eating? How much
well, that's the one thing we can say, right? Like, we know that.
I guess we could just broad brush.
Yeah, like, you need to be at your maintenance calories or minus somewhere in the neighborhood of 0 to 500 to put you in a deficit. If it's, I need to lose weight to get better at this sport.
Yeah.
I mean, this conversation has happened so many times with the affiliate that I'm always like, can you show me a CrossFit athlete, someone who's and I always use CrossFit Games athletes because they're easy to find. Like, can you show me an example of a CrossFit Games athlete where you're like, ooh, I don't want to look like that? And they, go deep dive and like, actually, like that's maybe not as ripped as that, but like, I like the fact that I have muscles. And I'm like, you have to realize the people that you're looking at right now train for 6 hours a day. You were training for 1 hour, 3 days a week. Yeah. They are also like very, very dialed in and to the point of obsession with like what goes in, what goes out. They know every input and every output in their body. And they have to eat at a level that is insane to support the amount of training that they're doing. And as long as you're kind of sticking to like the 100 words of fitness, like, eat enough to support, your exercise, but don't exceed like body fat, like through enough experimentation, if you get aware of what you're putting in your body, you very quickly can figure out like your macros or your calories and just get an idea of like what your baseline is, and then use your own body like a science experiment and tinker a bit. And we can figure out based on your height and weight and your goals, roughly where you should be for all those numbers. And then we test it out for 6 weeks. And if you like the way you feel, keep on keeping on. If you don't like the way you feel, we tinker again. And most people that can get past the initial like, oh, I want to tone up or I don't want to be bulky right off the bat. If I can break down that barrier and just say, hey, just come to the gym consistently and pay attention and eat good things, that whole conversation about getting bulky like just disappears into thin air, because they quickly realize that like they have to work so hard and eat honestly pretty terrible for them to like blow right up. If they just pay attention to how they eat and they come consistently, they're going to be closer to the person they aspire to be when they walk in the door, and not this like muscle bound freak that you'd see in professional bodybuilding. That's not what you turn into. That's just not a thing that happens.
Yeah. Avoid high volume and don't eat too much. Like, but then again, like in my mind, I'm like, what's your fucking goal? What are you trying to accomplish? So, hopefully that helps in some way, shape or form. Next, this one is from Amanda with 2 A's and an underscore. Incorporating more outdoor training,
no fucking way that's your
i.e.
name,
swim, bike, and running for enjoyment into your training schedule while keeping training for the 2024 CrossFit season your priority. Luckily, we get to throw out a bit of a teaser. Hatchet off season number 2 starts on June 5th and has road biking and swimming and a lot of running in it. So we've already got that built in for you. The bigger picture answer that's kind of beautiful and amazing is those things make you fitter. So there's a ton of swimming and biking and running workouts at misfitathletics.com. The archives, I mean, if you searched, you would have too many workouts. For 10
years.
Exactly. Yeah. And just make sure, like we say with weakness templates, you're swapping something in. You're not adding, ridiculous running intervals into, being your third conditioning piece.
I mean, I just look at that and I want to say that if your goals are competitive CrossFit, you have to realize that most of your training until you go to the CrossFit Games exists within the 4 walls of a CrossFit gym. That doesn't mean you can't do some of these other things, but you have to realize that like potentially if you're picking something out of enjoyment versus need, that is not necessarily fitting your like priorities in line with your goals. And if you do that enough times, you could be putting in what is really good, just, experience for you, but not necessarily working on the things that you need to be working on to get better at the sport. So I always welcome the, hey, go for a hike, go for a swim, stand up paddleboard, whatever, do other things other than just thrusters and pull-ups, but just realize that like everything exists. If you do more paddleboarding, you're doing less thrusters, which means if you go to the quarterfinals next year, you might not be ready for the amount of thrusters that are in the quarterfinals, and that can be an issue. But we are so far away from that right now that like, if that's going to help increase the enjoyment in your training, like, fuck yeah, do that stuff. And I mean, in the busy part of the season, if you're feeling beat up and you got rowing intervals and you're like, you know what, my shoulder is killing me, and you'd rather sit on a bike today, sit on a bike for a day, have some fun, or, you know, go for a run in something different, because you can create a similar stimulus with a different implement, which is something we talk about all the time in the podcast, is that we create workouts to create stimuli, not to be like, you know what, 97.5 calories is the exact right amount of calories to get you fit today. It's like, no, like this amount of time is what you need, and you can do that time on 5 different machines to get you a similar stimulus.
I can't think of a scenario where fitting this stuff into your programming is not going to make you better at CrossFit.
Yeah, would be detrimental. Yeah, I think the only caveat is like, just keep in mind, like everything you do has a consequence, not necessarily negative, but a cost. So like Sherb said, if you are electing to go for a bike ride at the expense of something inside the gym, there's a cost to that. It's not necessarily good or bad. There just is. And if but then there's also like, well, maybe I do need to do these thrusters more, but it's going to actually be better for my mental health long term if I omit the thrusters today and go for a bike ride because it's sunny and I really want to bike and it's fun. Like maybe the instantaneous, the lack of thrusters didn't necessarily help your fitness, but the improvement in mental health made your entire week of training better, and that's on the upside. So it's, I agree. I think it's, and like you said, and like Sherb said, unless you're a athlete dead set on a very, very specific goal, a very, very high level competition, then that's when it's like, well, we're going to fit this into the training at some point. You need to make sure that you are doing the other things necessary to compete at that level. But that's a very small fraction of the population. So I would just say, just fucking get after it.
Very true. So this time of year, the ask becomes important. We try to put as much goodwill out into the community as possible, just in terms of how much content we do. Obviously, the content and the podcast and all that stuff is free. This is the moment where Gary Vee, he talks about jab, 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 right hook. The right hook is go to properfuel.co, use the code word Carol, Paige, or Kelly. Go to sharpentheaxeco.com, use your favorite athlete code. Again, some of them are not contractually allowed to tell you what their code are.
Their code is
Hunter. Yes, it's Hunter. Hunter has a lot of sponsors outside of this room.
A lot of codes too.
A lot of codes. So make sure you use your favorite athlete code. You save money in all of these scenarios. So like, congratulations, you still save money. You'd have to purchase something. And then more importantly, they get paid. There was an article came out recently and talked a little bit about the spectrum of how expensive it is for them to travel, but it is fucking absurd.
It's crazy.
And we do our best to generate revenue, to turn around and give it back to, the athletes that we believe in, but you can do your part by heading to sharpentheaxeco.com or properfuel.co. Use the code, try out the products. We believe in all of them quite a bit, and they make some money. Did we do it?
We did it.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Misfit Podcast. Don't forget to head to misfit.camp and get signed up for Misfit Summer Camp June 23rd through the 25th. We already talked about the other stuff. Of course, we are misfitathletics.com and teammisfit.com. That would be for your affiliate programming needs. We might see you next week.
Maybe.
Bill, cut it.
I wanted to be, that has to be the end of the podcast. That's a wrap.